Hello again, I am Blunty. So, we just had that Nintendo Direct that Big Red gave us like a day's warning on, probably so the news cycle wouldn't get too distracted from the big Direct event coming up, all about the Switch 2. No, this one was basically about one of the last gasps of air the OG Switch will have before it becomes officially last gen, and therefore dead to us all. And Big Bro Switch 2 starts hogging the stage. And there was some mildly interesting stuff, I guess. But outside of the games announced, which I think at least half were just remakes or re-releases or ports from ancient systems and stuff, Nintendo very quietly let slip a very important little chunk of information about how the existing Nintendo Switch game library will be handled on the Nintendo Switch 2. Namely, it looks very much like we've just had it confirmed, officially once and for all, set in stone, very much like how Sony does with their PS5 and PS5 Pro consoles, and the PS4 and PS4 Pro console before it. The Switch 2, with its full backwards compatibility, was already quite welcome, but we were all hoping at least a small pile of the most high-profile and long-lasting games would get updates or patches for the Switch 2 in order to release them from the performance limitations their original platform had them struggling under. Well, after watching the Nintendo Direct and being intrigued by the virtual game card stuff they went on about, I went to the official website to see about finding out if there's any classic Nintendo little gotchas and annoying little catches and limitations. You know what they're like. You have to check for this stuff. In large part, though, the video presentation actually did a really great job at communicating everything we actually need to know about how the system works. But when I scrolled down to see those nasty little footnotes they always hide the greasiest crap in, I saw something. Look at that. Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive games and Nintendo Switch 2 Edition games can only be loaded on a Nintendo Switch 2. Well, of course Nintendo Switch 2 games only work on a Switch 2. That's obvious. Wait a minute. What was that? Nintendo Switch 2 Edition games. That's new information. So there it is, confirmation, official, right from Nintendo's own website, that at the very least we'll be seeing multi-generational releases for a little while. Again, using PlayStation as the example, there's often an overlap between generational releases, or at least the last couple of generations, like how we saw games release in both PS4 and PS5 versions for quite some time, actually. With the PS5 version obviously having better performance, more consistent frame rates, higher frame rates, and better visual presentation and the like. And I'm really hoping that that will be the case for the new Pokémon game, for example, because it looks like garbage visually. I really like Pokémon, but that game just, I'm so tired of playing brand new Pokémon games that look like complete shit. There is some amount of good gaminess that can compensate for a game looking like shit, but it's still always unpleasant to play a game, you know, the richest franchise in the entire world, and they just don't put in any effort. It's insulting, really, as a fan. And if you're about to leap to Pokemon ZA's defense, I'm going to link you to a beat-em-ups video where the dude breaks down the whole damn thing irrefutably, describing just how much worse this game looks than the previous games, in fact. And that's pretty annoying, because I was planning on making that exact video. Longhead bastard beat me to it. It's alright, he did a really good job anyway. But of course, this now confirmed feature of a single title having multiple versions for the generational jump to Switch 2 does leave the door wide open now for existing Switch games, Switch 1 if you like, which I think we'll be winding up calling it, or Switch OG as I've been calling it, to get post-launch updates. And once more, there is lots of precedent for this in the PlayStation universe. Cyberpunk 2077, Ghost of Tsushima, No Man's Sky, and a fairly chunky list of other long-tail and high-profile games got PS5 updates after launching originally just for the PS4. I can easily see No Man's Sky Switch Edition getting a Switch 2 glow-up. Hello Games have done shockingly good work on the Switch Edition already. It plays so much better than it has any right to on the dinky little OG Switch. And of course, Hello Games are really very active and constantly pushing updates for that game. Got a big new update just 2 days ago, as a matter of fact. And Hello Games have been using some updates for No Man's Sky to test new game engine technology that we will no doubt be seeing in Light No Fire, their upcoming game. So a Switch 2 edition of No Man's Sky would let them test bid if the Switch 2 is worthy of a Light No Fire port as well, I guess. Monster Hunter Rise, of course. Even with Wilds out now, the Nintendo Switch version of Rise is still surprisingly active. I needed to record some fresh gameplay very recently for a video, and yeah, multiplayer over there is still thriving. So releasing that game from its 30 FPS cap and its 756p internal resolution would be very welcome indeed. That game feels wonderful at 60, as anyone who played it on the bigger consoles or the PC port knows very, very well. Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Anyone who has ever toyed with those on an emulator, for example, knows how lovely 60 FPS treats those games. I mean, I'm not going to roll down a whole goddamn list of OG Switch games that would be even more amazing than they already are if they were just released from their resolution and frame rate limits alone, never mind anything more substantial like higher res texture packs or new lighting enhancements, better draw distances and stuff. I bet each of you could name like 5 games just off the top of your head you'd scramble to play again with little more than an invitation of a Switch 2 enhancement patch. We were all hoping and even perhaps expecting this kind of stuff to happen, but today we got our first solid evidence of it being a set-in-stone official reality, so that's pretty damn exciting in my book. And as for the actual virtual game card stuff that led me through all this, it seems pretty straightforward, and well, while it's not quite as, let's say, generous as what Steam does with family sharing, for instance, I think it's a pretty decent way to go when you're talking about a console experience and trying to make it easier to move and play games when you're not always going to have a constant internet connection for validation. Is it perfect? No, of course it's not. It's Nintendo. So of course there's weird limitations that make no sense, like only being able to share between 2 systems, and 2 systems only. Why? I don't know. There's no real reason to limit it like that. It's just code. It could be 2 systems or 200 systems. It would work the exact same goddamn way. And requiring the 2 machines to be in close physical proximity to kind of handshake before any of this just works is just stupid and pointlessly annoying. What does physical proximity do that any data connection over any distance can't do? Time-limited lending to people in your family group is actually pretty smart, and automatically returning your game after 2 weeks will save some fuss if you don't share the same household, or there's fights about not being done with it yet, but the owner actually wants to play it again, But yeah, in general, I think it's pretty much okay. I'll personally find it way more useful than the existing way, because until now, people with multiple Switches, perhaps they've got one for home use and one Switch Lite, which is slightly more convenient for travel, for example, as I have. Well, one of those has to be the main machine, and the other one was just kind of a secondary slave who could only start games that you paid for, that are in your library, that are attached to your account, if you had an internet connection to validate it every single time because it was the secondary one. Well, now both machines are more or less equal, and which one gets to play a game in your library is determined by imagining the download as a virtual game card, giving one machine at a time effective ownership of it as if you had a physical game card installed into one or the other. To move your games between systems, you do of course need an internet connection the first time you start a game, so it can do the whole validation crap and close off some of the potential piracy and game cloning loopholes that might exist otherwise. And the same is true when you eject a loaded virtual game card. It has to have an internet connection to, validate that as well. But it is all fairly simple and easy enough to explain to someone who isn't super tech savvy, which of course is very important to Nintendo and is why they're couching it all in a metaphor of a virtual game card, even though, practically speaking, that doesn't make any sense at all, because the data is not limited to one physical entity, just by nature of how it works. It's just not. Virtual game card makes sense for dumber people. It makes it easy to explain to them. But, we'll soon see how well it works in practicality and how many people get confused by it and how many guide videos some of us might have to make about how the damn thing works. Thanks for watching. I am Blunty, and I will catch you next time. Let me know in the down below what games you want to see Switch 2 enhancement patches for. And thank you to the patrons.